All right, this is Joshua Plank, and I am doing my lesson on Alexandra Monet's The Final Six. It is a story about a group of teenagers who are getting chosen to basically go to Europa and try to save the world. I guess try to create a colony on Jupiter's moon because Earth is suffering from a lot of really terrible natural disasters due to global warming, things like that. The main thing that I did want to focus on in this was the character development in the story. I've always believed that characters drive a story more than anything else, and what I wanted because the story ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. It basically ends with the final six being chosen. It was originally 24. It goes down to six, and they're pretty much just about to go to Europa. So there's a lot of character development in the story, but there's not a whole lot of payoff. We don't really know what happens or what's going to happen. We just kind of have we have a lot of setup. So what I wanted students to do was really to take those characters and really flesh them out together in groups and kind of predict what would happen later in the story. The way that they'll be doing this is I was going to focus on three characters in particular, three sort of main characters that are developed through the story. The first two are Leo and Naomi, who they're kind of the protagonists, they're the love interest. And then the other one is Beckett, who seems to be more of the antagonist. He's very cocky. He ends up finding out that he is the nephew of the president. So he's kind of like the bad guy in all of it. But in the story, a lot of their traits are uncovered as you read it. Naomi in particular has a lot of development. So basically what I wanted the students to do was kind of write down these sort of traits that they have. Fears, goals, flaws, and strength of each of these characters. For instance, Leo, one of Leo's fears is he's afraid of losing Naomi. Like he falls in love with her in the story, and then spoiler alert, he does not get chosen to go. Naomi goes without him, and so that kind of crushes his world. But he gets a second chance at that, and he kind of almost becomes like a hero where he's going to go by himself up there. But anyways, so one big fear he has is losing Naomi. The other students would write down those goals, flaws of the characters, strengths of the characters. Same thing with Naomi. One of her goals is to prove life is on Europa. She believes that there's intelligent life up there, and she is afraid that by going to Europa, we're going to possibly endanger that intelligent life for humanity. So there's kind of a difficult choice that she has there. If she's got to choose between human life and this alien life. And then Beckett, again, like he is sort of the bad guy in the story. He's very arrogant. So what the students would do is they'll kind of write down these, as many as they can, think of these, and then cite where they got the information. So page 47 is where Naomi kind of talks about where she believes there's life up there and she wants to prove it. Beckett is shown really arrogant on page 108 where he does this dive to try to show off because he's a very good swimmer and diver. And Leo almost actually is kind of arrogant in his way because he almost has to one-up Beckett. So you can almost use that same page to show his strength and his flaws. That they're both good swimmers, but they are both arrogant people. Eventually, after the groups of students have all wrote as many as traits as they can for these three characters, we're going to sort of do a little bit of role playing where I'm going to kind of give out a scenario. Maybe they actually get to Europa, and then what would happen? Perhaps, for instance, when maybe Leo catches up with the ship that's on the way to Europa, he's supposed to dock with it and join up with them again. What would Beckett's reaction be? What would Naomi's reaction be? Would there be a conflict there between Beckett and Leo? And they would use these different traits to kind of figure out what would happen. And I'll just throw out different ideas, different scenarios, and the students would kind of say, okay, well, I think this would happen because Beckett's very arrogant, so he wants to stay in control. And of course, Leo, he's also arrogant, so he's probably going to fight with him about who is going to stay in control. That could be a really good thing that they could bring up and kind of discuss and figure out um, how the story would sort of unfold just by their traits. The story isn't created because it's plot A to plot B to plot C. The story is created by when you look at these characters, you see what goals they have, you see what traits they have, and how those traits conflict with other characters' traits. That's what drives a story, right? Like Leo, it's not stated in the story that he is really worried about alien life there. It's on his mind when he's kind of told by Naomi, but never does he say, "Oh, it would be terrible if humans wiped this alien life out so that we could live there." It might be Leo's goal that if it came down to it, he would choose humanity over these aliens. So maybe him and Leo, or maybe him and Naomi would have a conflict there, and so the students can kind of explore that and see what happens to it. And it's just a really great way to sort of do this role playing and this thought process of how the story would unfold. And it would be different, honestly, for every kind of student who would really think about how these characters would interact. So, and that's basically what this lesson would be. It's just kind of understanding that it's characters that drive the story, and that they can do these sort of role-playing activities to really see where the story heads. We're not sitting down and saying, "Oh, what should happen next in the story? Oh, what should happen next?" What we're doing is sitting down and saying, "Oh, how are these characters interacting with each other, and how does that change it?" So that's pretty much what my lesson would be. It would be kind of a fun little thing to do. Also, citing these sources would be really good, that they can actually go down and say they understood what was going on. They understood this evidence that supported this character's traits, and they can kind of see where the story would go from there. So that is my lesson. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later.